Hello everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today we're going to be picking up the latter half of the Silmarillion Flash tournament that we did over the weekend. So I've got a semifinal match today. We're only going to have one semifinal match because we did have a forfeit for our other semifinal game. I tried to get someone into that game so we would have a second semifinals match, but unfortunately it just wasn't in the cards for that day. So we are going to do our semifinals match, and then we're going to move on to a best of 3 for the finals. So, before we get started here, I'm just going to go ahead and link my stream in a few different places so we can pull in the maximum number of people. But in the meantime, if you guys have any questions vis-a-vis the mod, or the tournament, or how to get involved in the community, I am of course here to answer all of those inquiries. So in just a few minutes here, we can get this replay started. And will just take me a few more moments. Right. And we should be good. Alright, so let's get this started. So, today we're going to have a matchup between, I believe, the House of Fingolfin again, as we will be seeing Demetrius Stratus, who managed to eke out a win over Celtic in the first round, in a very, very closely fought match between the House of Fingolfin and the Elves of Osiriant. And today we're going to see them facing down the army of Titus. He's going to be playing as Tolin Gaurhoth, which I'm fairly certain is his favorite faction. Given the amount that he pesters me about Sauron and other such things. He's brought some Hishbugraz za Gulkalab. So those of you just joining us for the first time, all of the, well, many of the names for Tolin Gaurhoth, for their war units in particular, are done in Black Speech. And there's a big old background to Tolin Gaurhoth that I made, specifically for the faction, since we know very little about them. So they're actually going to have Sauron on the field today. He's one of their options. We got 2 Mangonels here, so a long-range harassment army. And we're going to have some Scarahai Blood Drinkers on the front line as well. These guys are 2-handed axemen, belonging to, of course, the Scarahai clan, meaning the Wolf Folk. They make up the mid-tier roster for Tolin Gaurhoth. And backing them up, we're going to have the Gijak Skaraz, which is, you know, I don't even remember what it means. I think it's like Wolfguard or something like that. Yeah, something like that. So we have the Wolfguard chosen. They're a spear unit. Out front, we have the Hishbukraz, or Ash Claw Howlers. These guys are lock morale fodder. They're mostly here to just get in the way. You're not going to get a ton of kills off of them. However, they are a substantial tar pit that can be used to buy you the time for your cavalry to do the work. Because, of course, Tolin Gaurhoth, being the Isle of Werewolves, is going to rely really, really heavily on their warg cavalry. So we have the Blood Drinkers there. Chosen, in behind them, we have some more Blood Drinkers. Very wide formation here being taken by Titus. He's also bringing some of the Hishbukraz Ash Priest, and these guys are a very special unit indeed. Currently, they don't have their proper slinger animations, but those will be added a little bit closer to when Gondolin is added to the mod, as they will use those for at least one of their units. But the Ash Priests are a close-quarters support unit. They have a limited armor-piercing projectile that focuses on their fire, as the Ash Priests as a clan are kind of fire-obsessed fanatics. So you're going to find that that flame weaponry runs through most of their roster. So, these Hishbukraz Ash Priests are no exception in that regard. They are very, very light. There's less of them than normally would be, but they are also relentless, so they cannot be stunned. And they have 3 HP. They're, in fact, one of the only, in fact, possibly the only 3 HP unit currently in the game. But they do have some significant drawbacks, the biggest one being their lack of armor and low shield value. Now we move on to the wargs. I'm going to go ahead and slow things down here. He's got some Hishbukraz za Gulkalab. These are the Ash Priests of the Witch Fort. So, Gulkala is the name I have given to the to Tolian Gauderhoth, as Tolian Gauderhoth is actually a Sindarin name, and it would be somewhat strange if the orcs used that. So they, of course, have their own, meaning the Witch Fort. Sauron is a very famous sorcerer, especially in the First Age, when he was certainly at his zenith, probably close to his zenith. And the Hishbokraz Gulkalab actually use fiery javelins that affect the morale of the targets that they hit. In behind, we have the Laugskaraz Zagulkalab. These are the Skarahai wargs. They are medium melee cavalry, they have an armor-piercing charge, and they can be very, very deadly. They're also extremely cheap to bring, and you can bring them in large numbers. That's kind of the big draw of using such a unit. In behind them, we have the Thrung Sheik Wolfborn. These are the best of the best when it comes to the warg cavalry. They are a 2 HP heavily armored warg unit. You can upgrade their armor to give them about 10 or so armor, and they can be a very potent unit indeed, especially off the charge. And they're a little bit larger than other units that fulfill a similar role, like the Roqueni Magloro. They've got about a third of the unit size on them, so that's pretty significant. I think that's going to do for Titus's army, so let's pop across the field here. Another Fingolfin army from Demetrius Stratus. I think he's going to be using more or less the same composition he had the last time. So he's got 3 Sentries of Hithlum, at least 3 Bladesmen of Barad Eiffel here. These are heavy Noldor infantry. They have really good morale and really good melee defense, as the House of Fingolfin does focus more on their melee defense than their armor than other factions like, say, the House of Finarfin or the House of Feanor. That's a Marksman of Barad Eiffel here. I'm going to have probably 2 of them, 1 on each wing. Yes, indeed. So the full complement of them being brought today. Herdsmen of Dorn Loman, the men of the House Hador, the Edain of House Hador, going to be making up the second line here. With the Herdsmen of Hithlum, they're a little bit more of a close quarters focused archer hybrid. And we have the Sons of Húrin. Always a good idea to just stop for a moment to appreciate the Sons of Húrin and the fantastic work that Skyly has done on them. You can see Húrin there with his dragon helm of Dor Loman. Yes, I'm aware he doesn't actually wear that in the story, but it's just so cool and iconic that we couldn't add it to the unit that is his namesake. We've also got the Airimo Arantad here. So, the general model here for Fingolfin, you can see in the background, was actually made by Sin of the Dark Cloud. And the bodyguard unit itself was made by Castellan of Angmar. So a big thank you to the 2 of them for the hard work they've done on the mod so far. And we have a second company over here of the Herdsmen of Hithlum. There's the other marksman unit. Looks like we've got a detachment of the Herdsmen of Dorn Loman, so a half-strike unit that you can bring for half cost. And of course we have another full-strength unit of the Herdsmen of Dorn Loman. These are low-tier spears. They look real flash and fancy, as they wanted the House of Hador to be a little bit more well-integrated into the Elven unit, so they certainly have some Elven assets that they've been equipped with as they go into battle. And then finally, we have 2 Light Lancers here of Anan in Galuth. They are high-tier Lancers. They are quite light, with only about 4 or 5 armor value and 5 shield as well. So, large numbers of bowmen can certainly cause a lot of havoc with this expensive unit of cavalry. One thing to note is that the House of Fingolfin has more expensive cavalry than other factions, as that is not their focus. So these units are a little bit less efficient in terms of their cost than other similar units, but the House of Fingolfin does get a lot of use out of them nonetheless, so it's worth the price tag. And then finally, I think I missed them earlier, we've got a detachment here of the Herdsmen of Dorn Loman. So this is looking like it's going to be a really, really quick battle. So Titus trying to get himself into position so he can use his mangonels to great effect. Now I assume that he wants to try and pull his opponent across this field here, where his mangonels can lay down some withering volleys of fire. They're actually much improved in this patch over previous and live versions of the mod. So you're going to see the mangonels hopefully do a lot of work here today. But while we wait for both players to get themselves into position, I want to take a moment here and go over chat and see what's going on there. Will new maps be added to the mod in the near future? Yes, absolutely. You're going to be seeing some new maps in the next public patch, in fact. I'm here to say that in 4 days it will be my birthday, and I will become Bogdan 19K. Thanks for your attention. Well, you know what, Bogdan? In 2 days it's my birthday, so happy birthday to you, man. Let's go ahead and we're going to fast forward things just a little bit here. Kick it up to 2 times speed. Sauron, of course, hanging out in the Tolian Gauderhoth army. Now, he is actually going to be getting a new model. This is one that is just being used with Vanilla 3rd Age. However, we do have Castellan of Angmar working on a brand new model for Sauron that better depicts how I think, or at least the team thinks, he could have looked in the First Age. And so Titus is swinging wide here with all of his cavalry, and there is a lot of it. One of the strengths of Tulin Gaudhoth is not only their cavalry, but also the sheer numbers of cavalry that they can bring. And it looks like Fingolfin is engaged on a mad sprint here through this pass. And you know what? I can't say that I blame them. Titus's mangonels now in position. They're going to open up, and let's see what they manage to accomplish. Now, beautiful. Ooh, that's going to be nasty. That almost clipped Fingolfin. Almost sniped his general right off the bat. And some of that fire raining down in behind the army here, overshooting it. Oh, there's going to be some fire that they have to run through here, and you're actually going to see a lot of these units get killed as they walk through it. And this is going to oblige Fingolfin to move forward as quickly as they can. Another volley of that fire being laid down into the advancing Fingolfin army. He's getting some decent value here, certainly thinning out the herd. But a fifth of this unit has already been killed on the approach. And more of them are going to fall. Another fifth coming out of that unit there. And these two are relatively unscathed. And now they've reached his front lines. We got here about 20 or so of those sentries of Hithlum. Still some decent value from the artillery there, although I'm not sure that the two are really going to pay for themselves in this kind of fight, as the House of Fingolfin player was very wise with how they decided to approach this, and Titus's army was not able to get themselves into position to get the full value for their ammunition. Now they are going to struggle to fire into already engaged units. Ooh, another big one coming down there, and they're going to walk through that fire. Oh, no, it's actually not going to do anything to them this time. Yeah, the mangonels have difficulty firing into blobs at close range. Now the Hispocras Howlers coming into contact with the Edine Pikes. Oh, we're going to see that drop some fire here too. Oh, and it's going to go right into the Ferdsmen of Dorloman. They don't like that. They're going to lose about 30 or so, if not more men out of the unit there. Hispocras Howlers tying down units as they are wont to do. Scar High Trappers here. Unfortunately, this line was too thin, and Demetrius Strauss is going to be able to pull on through. Now, the Scar High Trappers are a armor-piercing javelin unit. Titus is therefore going to engage his reserves. He's going to charge into battle with the Scar High Blood Drinkers, but I don't think that there's enough numbers and support here to really make this a viable straight-up fight, and those Blood Drinkers are already looking like they are shaken. There's a lot of very scary units here, and they are quite strung out as well, and they're going to take casualties very, very quickly. You want to be able to support these units. At least the Gijek Scouters Chosen are in here as well. They're going to be able to lend some morale support. But all through the battle line here, it looks like the House of Fingolfin has managed to penetrate the Tulin Gaudhoth formation. Now, Titus is using his cavalry as kind of a big wave here, which I don't think is the best idea. In come the Lancers. The Lancers actually have a decent mount bonus against wargs, and Titus is going to go at them with everything he's got all at once, but I'm not sure that that's a great idea. Now, let's see where his Thrangshik warlords are. Now, if they're in this fight, they need to be pulled out and used against the rear of the Sentries of Hithlum. So a lot of cavalry now in behind the lines here. There is some opportunities for some mass attacks that could potentially break this, but it doesn't look like Titus was able to get his cavalry into position quick enough. Now, the Sons of Hurin in the back lines, getting stuck in with the Hispocras cavalry, and this is just looking like a disaster for Tulin Gaudhoth in so many ways. They invested really heavily into these two mangonels, and it just hasn't paid off for them. Thrangshik Wolfborn over here, possibly getting themselves strung out and caught on pikes, not at all where they want to be. Let me see if I can find out where Sauron is chilling today. Sauron, Lord of Wolves. He's right here. And he's going to charge into the fray, and it looks like the poor orcs of Tulin Gaudhoth are just getting pancaked here. Blood Drinkers being thrown in, Gijek Scouters Chosen being thrown in, but I don't think that there's enough infantry here. There's not enough infantry oomph, certainly, for Tulin Gaudhoth today. Got some Laugskaras retreating from the field. Thrangshik Wolfborn just kind of zoned out and not really able to do anything, and they're just being kept out of the fight when they need to be active. This is looking like a blowout in favor of the elves of House Fingolfin. Yeah, Demetrius Stratus barely even had time to engage his reserves before he smashed his way through that front line. There just was not enough there to keep him held back for any significant period of time. This is also a possibility for those mangonels there. Hopefully they manage to fire into them. It seems like they have. Yeah, slowly but surely cooking some of these Edine. I think we might see a big, ugly volley here. No, it's going to overshoot there at the last moment. Scar High Trappers doing their best to stem the tide here, and it seems like with the addition of Sauron, he is at least able to sort of turn the tide here. So now Sauron is kind of stuck in combat here, and he's going to waddle his way into the Sons of Húrin, which is not at all where he wants to be. The Sons of Húrin are an anti-Sauron unit in the extreme. You can see some supporting fire from the Ash Priest being laid down, but this is not where Sauron wants to hang out, and he's going to waddle his way through there, cause lots of chaos, shave off some of the HP, but now they're going to get a rear charge, and this is just ugly, so I think we could see Sauron begin to fall away here. Elephants like this are actually quite responsive and very high mass, so there's no reason for Sauron to be hanging out where he is right now. Would have been much better if he was maybe over here harassing the rear lines, trying to support some of the more sticky units from Toland Gaudhoth, like the Gijak Skada has chosen. And about 40% of the elves have been killed today, but the Toland Gaudhoth army, I think, has reached basically critical casualties. I'm trying to figure out where Sauron is. He's still hanging out. He managed to get away from the Sons of Húrin, at least. And against the Airimo Adantar, the Guard of Fingolfin, he'll be a little bit better served. And he's supporting the Gijak Skada has chosen. You can already see that his presence is not only inspiring, but also extremely potent. So the First Men of Dorne Loman here don't like fighting against one of the most potent Maiar ever to be in the service of Morgoth and ever to exist in the world of Arda. And Sauron is just going to continue to whack his way through here. I mean, a little bit more micro here from the Toland Gaudhoth player, using his Sauron a little bit better, trying to keep him away from those big threats and supporting this remaining unit. But there goes the Toland Gaudhoth general. Looks like his artillery pieces have now been shut down, and this is going to be, I think, a well-deserved victory for the Fingolfin player. The Toland Gaudhoth army just didn't have the right composition in order to fight the kind of battle they ended up fighting. House Fingolfin recognized where his enemy's strengths and budget lie, and he rushed through this pass here in order to minimize the amount of damage that the Mangonel could do. And we saw it was quite significant, killing about a fifth of some of the mainline infantry units right off the bat. And then back here, we have the Hishbor-Kraz Ash Priest. Hopefully Sauron is able to rejoin them, dueling here with one of the Sons of Húrin. Let's see if Sauron is able to get a few more kills here. There are some Sons of Húrin mixed in. Ooh, he's just such a force for disruption, Sauron. But now the rest of the host of Hithlum is going to swarm against the small remaining pockets of Toland Gaudhoth. Even Sauron's mighty morale buff of +10 is not going to be enough to keep those Gijak Skadas chosen in the fight in the absence of their leader. Ooh, nice little shot here from Sauron. Getting a good charge here. He's going to end up in the pikes, which is not where he wants to be, and down goes Sauron. The Lord of Wolves has fallen, and now it's really just the Ash Priests who are left over. And the Ash Priests are no joke. Even surrounded, like I said, they are unable to be stunned, so they will just continuously put damage into your units. Anybody that dares to get close to them, and with that 3 HP, they have a lot of staying power. Let's look at the final count here. About half of the Fingolfin army was killed in that brief but bloody engagement, and most of the Toland Gaudhoth forces have been swept away. So I'm going to leave the camera right here, and we'll check out the chat for now. How big is the new Sauron going to be? I've seen some early mock-ups for how he might look. Ideally, he'll be about the same size as he is right now. New Sauron, armor 45, charge 60. I think he's got about 30 armor, 25 melee defense, and 15 HP. And he's got a charge value of, I think, about 15. So he's a bruiser, and we could see him getting some decent engagements here today. And we'll see what he ended up having as his final kill count, as the House of Fingolfin continues to mop up and finishes mopping up what remains here of the Isle of Werewolves. And then go the Ash Priest. Well, that's going to be basically it. Let's take a look at poor old Sauron. Lord of Wolves managed to get about 62 kills there. Unfortunately, he did have some tough engagements, and I think he should have been used in tandem with the Ash Priests, kind of just as a wrecking ball crew. But there are some pretty serious problems, I think, with the utilization of the cavalry, for example, by the Toland Gaudhoth player. They're just kind of used in one big wave, and they ended up being surrounded and taking really heavy casualties, and eventually they ended up routing. and he didn't really have the holding troops that he needed. So he had some Blood Drinkers, he had a few detachments of Howlers, and there was, of course, the Chosen, who are very, very sticky indeed. But there's just not enough infantry on the line here, and it really did. It really did show in the end there. Like, his formation was just immediately penetrated, and he had no more reserves to throw in, which might have worked out if he was able to like quickly micro his cavalry. But like we saw, the Thrang Sheik out in the wings were zoned out for most of the game, and most of his cavalry was just kind of used in one big wave. So unfortunate there for Titus, but Demetrius Stratus will be moving on. And now, finally, we can move from our semifinals to our best of 3 finals matchup. Now, it's going to be the first match here between Finrod, who was my opponent in the last game. Unfortunately, his opponent was not able to do their match, as he had some personal stuff come up. And I wasn't able to find a replacement for him in time, so he moved on. And now we're going to have a clash here between these two really, really solid players. So, first army here we're going to look at is Angband, which is the first time that we've actually seen Angband in the tournament, so I'm really excited to show them off to you today. Here we have the Troll Guard of Gothmog, and they pair very, very nicely with the new Valoralkar. Now, it seems that Finrod has put his general into the Valoralkar, which does result in some craziness, largely because the rider offset was actually so far beneath the ground, and a lot of our units are made at sea level. The water beneath the ground would kill the rider and then kill the elephant, so I've had to move them up. So I don't recommend putting your general in here, because it will entail a little bit of weirdness, and there's really no good reason to do it anyway. Pardon me. But he's brought some Valoralkar. They are elephants with an area of effect attack, and they also inspire +10 to nearby units around them, and they pair very nicely with the Troll Guard, who are there to take hits for them. So you can actually smash through some of the soft counters in the game if you use those 2 units in tandem. Now let's go ahead and slow things down here, as this is a very short match. Finrod has also brought some Ironshot Arbalists, some Spear Guard of the Iron Crown, a very sticky unit indeed. This model was actually done by the Cowering Coma, and it is fantastic. You can actually find it in Reforged if you're interested in seeing them in sort of their natural environment. But they work so well for the concept of Angband that we just couldn't, and the quality is so high, we just could not add them. We got some Guardians of the Iron Crown here with their maces, their armor piercing. In the back, we got some Wretches of Angband. Oddly enough, one of the better units in Angband. The Wretches are extremely cost effective, and when paired with cavalry or with Valoralkar, etc., etc., they can keep a lot of their counters away. So the elephant units, in particular, are quite weak to monster-hunted cavalry. So spear cavalry from Assyrian, for example, can do very well for them. The Wretches are useful in that regard. So the Valoralkar here, 2 units of Troll Guard. That's a real goon squad right there. More Spear Guard, Arbalists on the front line. We also got a couple of Thralls of Angband here, which are a low-tier archer unit. His front line is going to consist of Guardians of the Iron Crown and Halberds. Iron-shod halberds with their armor upgrades. Let's see if we can get a good look at that armor upgrade here. This is another one of the creations of Skyly, a member of our team, and it's just fantastic. It's an iconic look for Angband, and he really came through on it. But I think that's going to do. We don't see any cavalry here, so let's go ahead, slow things down, pop across the field, and see what Demetrius Stratus is bringing. I think we're probably going to be familiar with this. He's brought some Marines of Venyamar this time, as he's going to need the armor piercing against Angband. Oh, he's actually mixed up a little bit. So we have the Armitar here of Barad Ithel. Now, I've already discussed briefly detachments. This is a detachment of the Bladesmen of Barad Ithel for House Fingolfin, but just as a little bit of extra flavor and to make them stand out more and to help specialize them even further in their swords, these units are actually a little bit more elite. So their detachment units for these high-tier companies are going to get their own custom model and perform better on the battlefield. In addition to that, they also have a minor Inspire effect. Herdsmen of Hithlum here, we're pretty familiar with them at this point. 2-handed axes, they're armor-piercing in close quarters and have a devastating charge, but they are low on melee defense and low on their armor and have a very limited missile attack. 2 Barksmen of Barad Ithel, Sons of Hurin as well. Beautiful, terrifying, lock morale, everything you'd want out of a offensive bodyguard unit. Oh, just one moment, please. Sorry about that, had to clear my throat. I have some Lancers mounted in Galuth here. These are high-tier light Lancers. They are a little bit more expensive than other such units, but that is because they're within the House Fingolfin army, where they are outside of their specialization, so those units are a little bit more expensive. Adimo Adantad here, the bodyguard of High King Fingolfin himself, and that is again where his general's bodyguard is going to be hanging out. Frontline consisting of the typical 3 units of sentries, and 3 units of the Bladesman of Baron Ithel. Very much meta for a front line for the House of Ingolfin. Marines of Vinyamar here as well. More Armitar Baron Ithel, and some Herdsmen of Hithlum. So this is a decently tooled army for fighting Angband. And these Lancers here of Adon and Galu, they will be pretty significant if he's able to put pressure onto the Angband backline. But of course, there are some nasty things to worry about. In particular, the Trollguard of Gothmog and the Valor Raukar are fast enough to really stay on top of cavalry. So it's going to be a real cat and mouse game there. Let's go ahead and kick it into full speed. Well, we have a few minutes here while the Angband force gets their ducks in a row. We'll go ahead and check out the chat here. How many human units do the House of Ingolfin have again? They've got a low-tier spear unit, mid-tier skirmisher / axe unit. They've got a bodyguard, and they've also got a detachment spear unit. So I think they've got the 3 units. No, and they have the pikes as well, so before. I haven't seen any Philothrim. Are they not very strong then? The Philothrim are decent. We haven't seen them today. I wouldn't read too much into that, honestly. Demetrius Redis has been playing mostly the House of Ingolfin, and they are by far the most powerful faction in the game, in my opinion. So I think it's just player preference so far. Titus, for example, was always going to play Tolan Gauderhoth, regardless of how meta, I guess, the larger community thinks that they are. People just have their preferences, and they tend to stick with them and play inside of them. This is actually our first time seeing Angband, for example. Angband is by no means a not very strong faction. So, Thralls here returning fire, skirmishing with the front line here of Demetrius Stratus. I think what he definitely needs to do is start to bring his Bladesmen forward here. There's really no reason for the Herdsmen, or the Sentries rather, of Hithlum to be taking attrition here from those low-tier Thralls. But that massed volley fire is starting to take a toll. So we'll see what happens here. We haven't seen this Fingolfin composition lose yet. Or at least the Fingolfin army lose yet. So I'm kind of hoping for a little bit of an upset here myself. That second line opening fire. I'm not sure what they're going after. Looks like some of the Wretches and the Iron-Shod Ravagers who are here. The two-handed armor-piercing axemen. Wretches are here to just kind of get in the way. Break up the advance a little bit. Not a bad idea from Finrod. Well, it seems like they're starting to pull back. So they're going to kind of draw these guys in here, get in the way, break up the advance, and then he's actually going to pull them back here, and that's going to buy him a few extra moments to continuously pelt them down. And these Sentries of Hithlum here have already taken about 60 damage, over 60 casualties worth of damage. Now they're going to be coming up against a very sturdy front line indeed, with those Iron-Shod Halberds. Yeah, this is definitely a deployment issue, I think, on the part of Demetrius Stratus. And over here, they're getting stuck in with the Iron-Shod Ravagers. Iron-Shod Ravagers are not really something you want to throw into pikes from the front, but it does serve the tactical purpose of delaying the advance even further, allowing him to inflict additional casualties. Sentries of Hithlum having a bit of trouble there, being up against the Angband front line on their own, but now with the addition of the Bladesmen, things may start to turn around for them. However, this is a very formidable Angband front line, and this needs to be paired with action out on the wings. That's kind of what we're seeing here. It looks like the Ravagers managed to get into the Marines of Vinyamar. Now, the Armitar are going to be in there, and hopefully they can allow the Marines of Vinyamar a chance to disengage from this battle and then use their ammunition. As I don't think we saw them use it up, although it's possible that they used them on this big old blob of crossbows over here, which, you know, not the worst idea. The crossbows are certainly very deadly, and they're currently being focused down by the second skirmish line of House Fingolfin. Now it says both sides are losing here. I don't know who to believe, but I think the House of Fingolfin quality will probably come through in a few places, although they are starting to get a little bit thin. These units of pikes here have managed to overwhelm the wings. And the Halberdiers are really starting to struggle here. There is the possibility of them being outflanked. Spearguard of the Iron Crown. Honestly, shocked to see them in such disarray. They're normally a very, very sticky unit, very hard to get rid of. And now the Goon Squad is coming out. Those 2 units of Troll Guards plus the Valor Raukar. We have a rear charge here from the cavalry. Let's see if he's able to get on top of them. Javelin volley there into the Spear Guard from the Marines of Vinyamar. They're going to take some losses from that, but the Marines are actually a little bit depleted here, down to about 2/3 strength. And they're now being engaged. Ooh, they're going to get one final vengeful volley off there against the Spear Guard. But they're actually being crushed in melee by Troll Guard and by the Valor Alcar. But unfortunately, there's no more infantry reserves here outside of the Spear Guard. So this could be tough. Now there is a little bit of breaking there. It's supposed to be the Wretches of Angband. That was a fairly successful charge here, I think, into the House of Ingolfin. So we've managed to sort of stabilize things a little bit. Spear Guard are now in a good position, but let's see what he ends up doing. Yeah, the quality of House of Ingolfin is beginning to show here in this line battle. Ooh, this is very nasty. Shots from the rear by the two companies of Thralls of Angband as they blob up around the Spear Guard of the Iron Crown. Now they've turned their tender attentions onto the Lancers of Anon Galuth, trying to shut them down before the Lancers are able to kind of round the bend here. But now the Lancers are seeing red, and they're going to go right for these Thralls. And another volley is going to come in. You can see the attrition beginning to mount. That's that light armor at work. But there's not really anything else over here that is able to support them, unfortunately. Although the numbers of the Thralls of Angband, and the fact that they have a supporting battalion nearby, might be enough to do the trick. I'm looking at maybe some rear shots here, both from the crossbows and some close-range volleys from the Thralls of Angband. Let's see what the ultimate fate of this light cavalry unit is. Oh, that's nasty. Many of them falling there in rapid succession. Now it's Angband's turn to be a little bit strung out. We have some action in the center with the Balrogs pushing their way in. And you can see that Angband is actually starting to win out in the center with the addition of these big, nasty Goon Squad troops. Although, things are looking pretty grim over on their right wing. There's not really any more support for the Spear Guard of the Iron Crown, and more House of Ingolfin units are pouring in. We got some Armitar here, and I think we'll start to see, if we haven't already, the Marksmen of Baird Ithel being brought in. Yeah, you can see them right there. So they're being brought in as reserves, and we're looking at perhaps the Angband line being rolled up here. They are winning in a few different places, thanks to the efforts of both their numbers, their armor upgrades, and of course the Balrog and his retinue. We'll see what ends up happening here. Always pushing into the pikes. It's a risky thing to do with elephants, but I think in this case it is a necessary and calculated risk on the part of Finrod. Well, they might go for a cheeky little rear charge here. Help out the Spear Guard of the Iron Crown. Nope. Maybe not. Troll Guard here, really making a difference. Now the Balrog's going to get another charge here. Smash into the rear of the Fingolfin army. They're a little bit thin on the ground there, the Noldor, so I think the damage of that charge is going to be fairly limited. But Finrod's doing a great job microing his elephants right now and making sure that they're kind of where they need to be. So he just has to have this wing hold. But I think that House of Ingolfin is reaching critical mass over here on their left wing, the Angband right. And this is where the battle is going to be decided. We got a few minutes of relative peace here. Let's take a look at chat for the time being. Titus only plays Toll for Sauron. I feel like those Cav need their charge distance fixed, or they are just bugging on the charge. I'm not sure which particular charge, but if you point out the timestamp to me, it's always something that I can take a look at a little bit later there, Sin. Alright, here we go. The massacre has begun. Ironshot Halberdiers reduced, but so are the House of Ingolfin. But there's just too much stuff here. There's like a third of an army still remaining on the Angband right wing. I don't think the Balrog and the few remaining Troll Guard are going to be enough. So Finrod's only hope here are to free up some extra resources by smashing the Host of Hithlum on his left. But over here, sort of a similar situation, right? Let's see what these thralls here end up actually shooting at. Well, they actually managed to break those Marksmen of Baird Ithel, and there's another opportunity here for them to get some more value. Taking a look at the percentages there, House of Ingolfin is ahead by a significant amount. Oh, Balrog's just hanging out here with the pikemen. This could be bad. I think Finrod is probably trying to pull them out here. What he should be doing is maybe trying to roll up this line, but I think at this point it's probably a foregone conclusion. Even the victorious Angband troops are not able to turn around in time. Troll Guard are doing their best, but they are beginning to fall, and they're not going to be able to hold back the storm forever. And now the Halberdiers are on the verge of routing. The Balrog's been brought in. That's probably the only thing keeping them alive here, but it's not going to be enough. We're going to see Angband rout off the field here today. Going to go ahead here, kick it into 2x speed. And House of Fingolfin is going to mop things up. They've been very dominant in this tournament so far. Oh, nice little rear charge here into the Marksman Baird Ithel. A swarm attack from those thralls. Fingolfin himself leading the charge here as even the Valoralkar flee before him. And there goes, I think, the general for Angband. And the Valoralkar has fallen. They're going to smash their way through the line here. Get a few additional kills, but I don't think it's going to be enough. And down they go. Another one still in the back here. Sounds of Húrin are nearby. Not something that Finrod wants to stick around for. And I think we're going to get an admit defeat here. Yeah, normally the Balrogs are locked morale, so there's the admit defeat. That's going to be a solid win for House Fingolfin. Another really, really solid win. Well, let's see what happens going into round 2. I'm about ready for an upset. I don't know about you guys. Let's move on to round 2 here. Let's take a look at chat and see how everyone's doing. Well, looks like we have another Angband force here being played by Finrod. It's actually on the same map, too. I'm curious to see how this one turns out. This one's a little bit longer than the last one. For a second, I kind of thought that it was the exact same replay, but no, this one's actually a good deal longer than the last one. So we have a similar composition here. Looks like instead of full companies of Arbalists, Finrod has actually opted to bring one of the detachments. We have another company of the Arbalists right there. Oh no, we have actually more Arbalists on the field today, so he's opting instead for more missiles. Throws Angband again in the center. And the center line is going to consist of both Guardians of the Iron Crown and Iron Shroud Halberdiers once again. So Finrod is trying pretty well the same thing, but with a slightly varied army composition. And what's he going to bring for his second line? So he's got 3 companies of the Ravagers here, whole bunch of Wretches, 2 Troll Guard of Gothmog, and the Valoralkar, which is interesting. With Angband, I probably would have opted for something a little bit more mid-tier heavy, a little bit more numbers heavy as well. In particular, the House of Fingolfin does struggle against armor. They have very limited armor piercing. They've only got the Sons of Húrin, the Herdsmen of Hithlum, who are quite fragile, and they got some javelins as well. So mostly it's their Edain units, and only one of them is of any like genuinely serious quality. So I think that perhaps going for more of a mid-tier heavy approach, bringing more Iron Shods, giving them all their armor upgrades, you could just overwhelm the House of Fingolfin with sheer numbers. They're not able to kill you off fast enough in a war of attrition. But we'll see how this works out for him. Let's go ahead and briefly go over the army comp. I think it's probably the same. Oh, no, we actually have the Sons of Feanor on the field today, so this will be exciting. So, Demetrius Stratus playing as the Sons of Feanor. He's got a mounted company of Kudufin detachment. He's got some Huntsmen of Thargelion, who are actually quite useful in this matchup, as they can be a very strong anti-elephant deterrent. Shieldbearers of Helivorn. Got some Defenders of Aglon there with their new textures, rocking that new red-crimson armor. Foemen of Amras with their first level of armor upgrade, not their second. Maybe we'll see some of them with the second. They turn red and crimson like the rest of the army when they have their second upgrade. Got a second company here of Defenders of Aglon, some Hunters of Caligorm heavy lance units, Huntsmen of Thargelion, and some more Footmen of Amras mixed in with Shield Bearers of Helivorn. We've also got the Accursed of Alcolonde today. These guys are actually really cool as a unit. So unlike the Defenders of Aglon, who we saw earlier, these guys have a higher armor value, but they are lower on their melee defense. And they are relentless. These guys cannot be stunned, so they are absolute wrecking balls in close quarters. But they are extremely vulnerable to cavalry charges, much more so than any of the other Feanor units. They are very expensive, and they're vulnerable to armor piercing just sort of generally, which is something that the House of Feanor is vulnerable to, but the Defenders of Aglon are less so because of their higher melee defense value. I got some more footmen there. And we have the Otorn Mighty Mo in addition to. These guys will actually be getting a cool new helmet. I believe Castellan Angmar is working on one, so I can't wait to show that off for you. But I can't promise that that will be in the next patch. Hunters of Caligorm here with their new mounts that we borrowed from Botet. Fantastic work done by that team, just always. Always. I don't think I've ever seen anything the Botet team has done that I just didn't like, for reasons of quality anyway. But that's a pretty substantial infantry force here. Not a lot of armor piercing, as like the House of Fingolfin, they do kind of lack in that department. Mostly it's the Edain who offer that functionality to them. Got some Riders of the Pass here, a detachment of them. And they've actually got a nice little buff in this patch, so they're a little bit more accurate. I'm not too sure what they're firing at here. Maybe at some of the exposed halberdiers. Yep, certainly seems like that's the case. Let's go ahead and kick things up to full speed now. Finrod's going to move forward. And the Ironshot halberdiers here are they're just gonna kind of tank it. And honestly, with their, they have about 8 armor value when they're upgraded to the 6 armor value of the 6 damage of the detachment of Riders of the Pass, and the 3 damage of the Huntsman of Thargelion. They will be able to stand up to this quite well. I'm not sure that what purpose, aside from being an anti-elephant tool, that the Huntsman of Thargelion serve for him in this case, as they are not really viable against the high armor of Angband, but we'll see. Possibly a decent answer to the Ironshot Arbalists. Ooh, a nasty volley there, going into not too sure what, but it seems like Demetrius Stratus maybe flew a little bit too close to the sun here, getting within range of the crossbows before he's ready. There's really no reason for him to have to do that. He has the range over Angband, and it doesn't seem like Finrod is going anywhere. He's going to be a little bit more defensive, like he was in the last game, and he has even more reason to do so, as this is life or death for Finrod. If he loses here, he's out of the tournament, and Demetrius is going to take it, so naturally he's going to play a little bit more conservatively, but we'll see how that works out for him. Ironshot Arbalist here, perhaps flying a titch too close to the sun, as they are right in the path of that Feanor advance, but also that's kind of where they want to be. Supporting fire here from the Huntsman of Thargelion, laying down the pain into the Ironshot Arbalists. They're actually not going to be able to get off a volley here, as Finrod is going to recall them before they're able to complete the animation. Hi, Calvin. Welcome, welcome. We're just working on the finals right now. So this is game 2 of the finals between Demetrius Stratus and Finrod of the Durin's Folk clan. Got some Mounted Company of Kudafin over here, tossing the Javies. I'm surprised we don't see more of them. Oh, looks like I actually missed the Knight units. We have the Requeni Maglor here with their unique mount, again from Botet. Can't say enough about the fantastic work that those guys do. This is actually a really nice Sons of Feanor force here. A triple line, got shield bearers in the front, got the Footmen of Amoros in the back, and then you've got the Defenders of Aglond and their legendary company, the Accursed of Akolonde, in addition to the Otorn Mighty Mo to keep them nice and stable. Now, I hope that Demetrius Stratus, yes, brings the rest of his army forward at the same time. Angband is not something that you want to take half measures or wave tactics against in this kind of situation, especially not as the Sons of Feanor. They don't really have the numbers to support such tactics, so he is going to come forward with his whole infantry body. He's going to be splitting his Defenders of Aglon, trying to get them onto the wings, which is a great place for them to be. Otorn Mighty Mo heading to the center. Well, let's see what happens here. These cavalry do need to be brought forward, though. Again, we've seen when cavalry-heavy factions like Toland Gaudhoth with Titus's army earlier don't make good use of their cavalry and don't make use of them quickly enough, things can go pear-shaped very, very quickly. So the Defenders of Aglon here, I think, coming under fire. This looks like from the crossbows, that's going to be a problem for their armor. They got about 13 armor to the 8 damage of the crossbow, but the crossbow is going to have that armor score, so it is a decent chance to slay these very expensive and very valuable Defenders of Aglon. There's really no sense in delaying any further. Oh no, and the poor Accursed of Akolonde coming under fire here as well. So the Mounted Company of Kudafin and the 2 Lancers being mobilized. Probably also the Knights as well. I'm not too sure where they are right now. Oh, they're swinging wide. Yeah. Demetrius Stratus needs to get his ducks in order very, very quickly here. if he's going to be effective. He needs to be able to maintain his numbers. That's one of the big problems when playing as the House of Feanor, is that if you can't maintain your numbers, then your infantry is going to fall apart before your cavalry has a chance to do anything. I think that's kind of what we're looking at here. Defenders of Aglon now charging forward, but in the absence of any support, I'm not too sure what JmonsterTW is thinking here. Rise of the Pass, getting a nice charge into the Ironshot Arbalists. Well done there. But the Valor Alcar and their Troll Guard retinue are going to have something to say about it. And now these Defenders of Aglon are just... they're just exposed. And I don't think they're going to stand and fight. Not with half their unit already being killed in fairly rapid succession. And indeed, they are going to rout there. Yeah, as more and more units swarm in against them, get in behind them. This is a very unfortunate and I think foolish waste of an expensive unit that he really needed to keep intact. So, things not off to a great start here for JmonsterTW. We'll see if he can pull off a miracle. Let's go ahead and get things up to one-time speed here. Maybe even a little bit further. And the Spear Guard over the Iron Crown moving back into position so they can support the Valor Alcar. And this is looking bad. I think he's just trying to maybe whittle down some of the Ironshot Arbalists, but there's really no reason for his infantry to be exposed to fire here, and I think that that's kind of the big issue that we're seeing, is just a lot of very expensive infantry units for the House of Feanor just kind of being picked apart. And there's really no reason for it. He could very safely fire into these blobs of Arbalists from range. The Thralls of Angband would certainly have something to say about it. Oh, we have another wave attack here. Shield Bearers of Hellevorn, they're gonna bounce off without any support in any case. But yeah, now we're starting to see a general advance here, but this is what we should have had happen earlier. Like using the Wretches and Cavalry, or not using the Wretches, but using the Defenders of Aglon, perhaps even the Otorn Mighty Mo over on this side. Maybe even stacking them in with the Accursed of Alcolande, and then using Cavalry in tandem. That would be the way to bust his way through this this flank here and start to put the squeeze on the phalanx. Now these Defenders of Aglon actually did come back. That's good news. Otorn Mighty Mo moving in as well. And Accursed of Alcolande are going to slaughter their way through the Ravagers, but the Ravagers are armor piercing with high damage, so they will be reasonably cost effective in a trade against the Accursed of Alcolande. Of course, there's still those missile units firing away. Now the Sons of Feanor Cavalry has been activated. A decent opportunity here for some of the Lancers. The Guardians of the Iron Crown are very, very armor dependent, and their melee defense is quite low. So charging into the front of them could potentially just wipe them out. Flying a bit too close to the sun here, I think, with the Hunters of Kelgorm, and now they are super exposed to the Arbalists. They're going to go for a nice rear charge, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hit home. But now they're also going to find themselves pinned here. So a decent charge there by the Sons of Feanor, but they're just, yep, they're pinned, and I don't think we're gonna see too much from them. Yeah, it was just one sort of suicidal charge into a blob of enemy forces. Not too sure what JmonsterTW was thinking there. Ironshot Arbalists in a lot of trouble. But I think the Sons of Feanor, we could say that they are in trouble kind of generally. They're about 9% behind. Ironshot Arbalists down to next to nothing, but they are still able to freely fire. We got here, second company of them, charging down the Thralls of Angband. And this is where it's starting to look a little bit ugly. Husband of Thargelion have been thrown in there, but they've been reduced to next to nothing. Defenders of Aglon struggling to hold back the Goon Squad. Let's see what's going on in the back here. It's really a race against time for the House of Feanor. Thralls of Angband being routed off in short order. But now we're going to see JmonsterTW have his line rolled up, which is exactly what he did to Finrod in the last game. Nice little charge here. The Guardians of the Iron Crown kind of getting stuck in here, but honestly, it's not a good engagement for them. Raquini Magloro going for a charge against the Ironshot Arbalists. That should be enough to send them packing. A devastating charge there from those Knights. Followed up with another attack there from the Mounted Guardians. Now he's still doing all right here. Otorn Mighty Mo probably not exactly where they need to be. Having them over here to have the presence of the General and his 3 morale and 50-meter Inspire effect is going to be instrumental in making sure that this line holds long enough for Demetrius to pull things back with his cavalry. And he's well and truly in the back. He's got the tools. Spear guard there, going to get a charge from the front. Not sure I would have done that with the knights. But I'm not too sure what other choices he has here. Wretches are zoning him out. Guardians of the Iron Crown, maybe. There's also Spear Guard in here as well. Yeah, things are looking grim for the Sons of Feanor. In come those Balrogs. And they're just going to charge along the length of this line. And it's going to be ugly. Yeah, setting themselves up for a nice little rear charge here. The general awkwardly flailing on the back. Although it's worth noting, if he's able to kill the general here, that could send Angband into a panic. They do not deal with morale shocks very well. But I don't think that he's well placed. He, being Demetrius, is well placed to do such a thing. And now he's kind of got no choice here, but a charge headlong into the wretches. And it's going to hurt. Those wretches don't like it. He's going to get charged down here by the Iron Crown Guardians in exchange. And there's only so much time he has left before he's Demetrius, or rather Finrod, is able to focus a lot of attention onto these cavalry with his remaining spear units and his big units as well, the Valor-Aukar and the Troll Guard. Got some routing here. Decent amount of routing. The Edain breaking off from the fight. Thralls of Angband now behind his army. I think this could be game over. Although the presence of the Accursed of Alcolonde, I would be curious to see how many kills they get, but I don't think we're going to have that opportunity today in the battle. But they have made a difference here. And Angband is struggling. Ooh, nasty rear charge here. Yeah. There's only so much to be done. Requiting Magloro here, fighting alongside the Lancers of Kelegorm. But Finrod has managed to keep the Sons of Feanor cavalry zoned out with the right units for just long enough. And now he's going to slowly but surely roll up this line. This is looking like it's going to be a victory for Angband. Otor and Mighty Mo holding the line as best as they're able. Still quite a lot of Hunters of Kelegorm, probably about 30 or so left. I think there's another unit in there. These Angband Thralls would be easy to rout off, I think. But I don't think it's going to come soon enough for the House of Feanor. Some juicy targets here, though. Lancers into the Troll Guard. That could hurt. Oh, yeah. That's going to be beautiful. That's going to smash them up real good. Those Thralls are going to flee pretty well immediately, as you would expect. Hopefully these guys can get off a good charge on the Troll Guard here. Actually, you can see the presence of the Valor-Aukar just kind of moving back and forth through the stakes actually does remove them. It's one of the quirks of Elephant-class units, so it does make the job of the House of Feanor just a little bit earlier, or a little bit easier, rather. But I don't think it's going to matter. No, the Rokuni Magloro getting like triple teamed here. Balrogs, Valor-Aukar, I think there's some halberds in there as well. And we got 80% to 68. One final glorious charge here for the House of Feanor as they do their best. Oh, they could rout off the wretches here. They don't like morale shocks as much as any other Angband unit. Ooh, nasty charge. Let's see, the halberds here. All things considered, the House of Feanor infantry is at a disadvantage by their lack of polearms, but they fought hard. And so you can't really fault them. Their quality was certainly shown today, but there were some problems, some hesitation early on that ended up proving decisive. He lost almost a full unit of Defenders of Aglon right off the bat. They did come back later with about 30 men left, but that's still 70% of the unit gone. Ironshot Arbalest there being eaten up. I think the Accursed have now been dealt with. Let's see, Otor and Mighty Mo, the bodyguard of Maedhros himself, the eldest son of Feanor. They stand alone against the horrors of Angband. And that cavalry is not going to be able to help them. They are much too far away, and there's not really a whole lot left in terms of infantry support that they can use as sort of the anvil to their hammer. Well, let's see what happens here. Maybe we're going to see an admit defeat. Or just one kind of last samurai suicidal charge. Not too sure. He's looking for something, an opportunity now. Angband is quite tired. I don't believe that they've lost a general. But nonetheless, these tired wretches, if they overextend, they could be very quickly gobbled up. And I think that's probably what he's trying to do here. But Finrod's not going to let that happen. He's quite an experienced player. I'd be surprised if the House of Feanor were able to kind of piecemeal pick this army apart. Oh, big charge there. They smashed into that troll guard. Probably managed to do a decent amount of damage to them. Again, if he can snipe out the Valoralkar. No, there goes the House of Feanor general. And I think we're going to see the rest of his cavalry begin to break off here. Maybe he manages to, like, save some of them from the fire. It looks like he possibly could. I don't think it's going to matter. Yeah, the Hunters of Kelegorm breaking off. Requeni Magloro fighting to the death. And everything else fleeing for the hills. There's still some footmen of Amaras here that rallied, but were unable to be used in battle. Oh, well, some of these guys will come back from routing. Requeni Magloro certainly coming back. Still having 11 knights. A nice thing to have. Ooh, there's an opportunity here. Eat some of those Ironshot Ravagers while they're away from their support. Hopefully he capitalizes on it. Let's see what happens. Maybe, just maybe, he can pull out some kind of crazy, like, victory here. I don't think it's gonna happen though. Managed to shield his cavalry from being charged in the rear. That's something at least. Phone of Amaras doing well there against the Ironshot Ravagers. With the addition of the Valoralkar and everything else, I don't think it's gonna matter. Yeah, Demetrius Stratus kind of in chaos here, but I think he realizes that he's beat. Let's go for one final glorious charge here from the Requeni Magloro. Smash into these guys. Well, they actually managed to rout some of the wretches, believe it or not, but they're going to be overlapped here by some halberds. And that's going to be the end for the Requeni. They're going to break off. And that is it. 94 to 77, a solid victory there for Finrod. And that is going to bring us into round 3 of our finals. Look at some of the casualties inflicted there. The House of Feanor are quite low in numbers, as I've mentioned several times throughout the battle, so I expect these kill counts to be a little bit lower. Wretches managed to get 129 kills. That's very shocking to me. Maybe they managed to, like, capture some units or something. Valoralkar did okay, but yeah, low numbers all around just because the House of Feanor had less than half the number of Finrod. Nonetheless, they did well. Killed well over 2/3 of his army. And pressure showing there from Demetrius Stratus. There was, of course, some problems, namely the hesitation early on, and some coordination issues as well. Not having the cavalry where they needed to be when they needed to be there just allowed more attrition to go into that Sons of Feanor infantry body, which held out valiantly, but there just wasn't the support needed when it was needed. Needed like a lightning strike, essentially, against Angband here in order to crush the phalanx, break things down, and use that weakness to morale shock against the hordes of the Hell of Iron. So, we move in to our final round. I'm excited. Are you excited? Let's take a look at chat here, see how everyone is doing. Any additional questions vis-a-vis the mod or the tournament or getting involved with the community? Doesn't look like it, but if you guys have any questions, by all means, shoot them my way. I will answer them to the best of my ability. Alrighty, so return to form here for Demetrius Stratus. House of Fingolfin. He's used them to great effect against Finrod in the past. I wonder if Finrod is going to play a third game here as Angband. I would be surprised. I'd be a little bit surprised by that. I think they might have given me the wrong replay here. Just 1 second there, guys. Let me just double check. No, it seems about right. Just give me one moment here, guys. Just want to figure this out. I had everyone send me the replays beforehand, but, you know, sometimes they just mess up. Nope, this sounds about right. So it's going to be another Angband versus Fingolfin matchup. They are very, very keen on playing the same matchups in kind of the same way, which is a little bit surprising to me. I would have expected maybe Finrod to try a different tack, but apparently this is the strategy that we're going with. All right, then. So, Ascension of Hithlum on the front line. More Bladesmen. Very meta army for Fingolfin, something that has served Dimitri Stratus well in the tournament so far. I don't think he's actually lost a game. Not with this particular army, in any case. So, Herdsman of Hithlum. Triple on the wings. The 2 bodyguards. I swear to God we've seen this before. But this is... I've told that this is the final game. Alright. Lances of Anon and Galuth. Just kind of do what they do best. Probing, being fast, looking for weaknesses, looking for opportunities. Was the final round a round robin type thing, a best of 3? It was best of 3. Most of the tournament was just a best of 1, so the games are you win or you die basically. But everything leading up to the tournament was best of 1, and then the tournament itself is a best of 3. So got some more skirmishing here. Trying to pick a fight there with the Ironshot Ravagers. Finrod's going to move forward with his Arbalists in response. Try and pew-pew these guys a little bit. No, I think this is actually the replay that we watched earlier. Let me see if I can get in touch with the players really quickly here, because they didn't supply me with the third replay that I needed. I'll just figure that out here. Don't exactly have a... I wasn't exactly given a very organized naming situation here, so hopefully I can get that from them. Yeah, we're just talking on Discord now. We'll get this started hopefully very quickly here, so we're just going to take a brief break, and that I can honestly use as a bit of an intermission anyway. Hello there, Jessica Lifford. Thanks for joining us on stream today. But yeah, so while I get the proper replay from the players, hopefully they send me the right one this time. If you guys have any questions about the mod, or about the channel, or about things that are coming up in the future, now's a good time to ask. I love answering these kinds of questions, so profit well from this brief intermission while I hopefully get the right replay. The previous match was 12k frames. The one you exited was 7 or so k. Yeah, this is definitely the wrong replay. The one that we're supposed to be watching would be Assyrian versus Fingolfin. So I'm just waiting for the players to kind of dig that out, and then I can just pop it into my replay folder and we can actually get this started. A projectiles are really good against elephant units. Yes, they are. That's kind of one of their softer counters in the game. And that's kind of one of the things we're going to use to keep them in check, is that there is lots of soft counters kind of liberally interspersed throughout the mod. And we've seen them make, nonetheless, a very good, large impact on the battle. The first Fingolfin versus Angband show that we did. Where Finrod ended up losing with Angband, but nonetheless, his Goon Squad made a huge difference. And again, they made a big difference against the House of Feanor. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing, elephants. Yeah, they take down AP projectiles pretty well all day. Perfect. So I have the replay here. Now we should be able to get this started properly. There it is. That's going to be our final matchup here. And it's going to be pitting the Green Elves of Assyrian, the Lyquendi, against the House of Fingolfin. And we've seen that matchup before. Finrod's going to be playing as the Green Elves. This is, I think, the army that he used to knock me out of the first round. So he's going to have some sentry, or rather some Scouts of Gelion. I always mix them up. There's Scouts of Gelion here, and then, of course, there's the Sentries of Gelion, who are the mounted equivalent of them. Got some Outriders of Dweilwyn as well. They are a Lancer unit. They can be very, very potent, and they are also very quick. And we've seen how the Lancers of Anodin Galuth can just kind of run roughshod over their opponents. And so Assyrian have a solid answer to that today. Rendir Mentol Golen, this is the only current Reforged-esque Ranger in the game. These guys have body-piercing projectiles. When laying down enfilading fire, they are super deadly and game-changing, so you have to keep your eye out for them. And actually, the combination of the Rendir and the Ents is what knocked me out of the first round. So we're going to see the Ents here again today on the battlefield. Maybe Finrod here can pull out another miracle. Currently, the series is 1-1. Got two units here with the Mythrin and Tilgolen. A 1 HP armor-piercing bodyguard for the Green Elves of Assyrian. We also got some Urfin and Tower. These guys are locked morale. High charge damage. They're armor-piercing. And really high base damage, but what they lack is both armor and melee defense, which has some pretty serious implications for them. They take huge damage off a charge, especially from cavalry, and if they are denied their charge, they can be outfought in melee quite quickly by other better skilled troops. Got some more Scouts of Gelion right here. Another company of the Scouts of Gelion, so I think we have 3 of them in total. This is the main line archer for Assyrian. They have a bow on basically most of their units, but these are the ones that have the staying power and the numbers and the ammunition to really be a problem over a long period of time. Kinsmen of Denethor. These are the legendary company, actually. It's the only legendary company capped at 2. They are a detachment, and they are locked morale and a bunch of other goodies in addition to that. But the biggest thing is that they are locked morale, and you can use them as support for your Ents, or just as sort of roadblocks on your enemy's path, which will allow your missile units to continue to fire. I think that's going to do. And we've got some more Kinsmen of Denethor over here, and then, of course, we've got some Outriders of Dweilwyn in addition to that. They're actually reforming here, so they're going to blow their cover a little bit, unfortunately. And then across the field, Demetrius Strauss's army returning to form here with House Fingolfin. Got some Herdsmen of Dorlomen, some Marines of Vinyamar, some Herdsmen of Hithlum. This is actually the army that I think this is best suited to fight, to be perfectly honest. Bladesmen of Beredythel, pardon me, and 3 companies of Sentries of Hithlum. These are pikemen from the House of Hador, who make up his front line, in addition to the 3 companies of the Bladesmen of Beredythel. In support, 2 marksmen, 1 company of Lancers of Anodin Galuth, and you got the 2 bodyguards in addition to. 2nd company here of the Herdsmen of Hithlum over on that side. We have the Sons of Hurin, the mighty Hurin Thalion, on the battlefield today. We've also got They're even in the same positions. Like, I've done this so many times, I actually know where all of his stuff is. And then, the High King Fingolfin himself. The model is fantastic, and it was made by Sin of the Dark Cloud. And he's going to be among the ranks of the Airimo Arantar. These are the, I can't remember what it means in Quenya. I think it's like Guardians of the High King, or something like that. Something related to the High King. That's where the Arantar comes from. But this model was actually made by Castellan of Angmar. I've said it a few times, but a big thank you to Sin of the Dark Cloud, Castellan of Angmar, Sky Lee, and the rest of our team for the huge amount of work and support that they give this project. But that's pretty well gonna round it out for the Fingolfin army here, and this is a game of cat and mouse. So, for those of you unfamiliar with the meta, Silmarillion is an asymmetric guerrilla faction. They are not gonna fight you straight up, at least not initially. They want to weaken you with missiles, and Demetrius Stratus is certainly giving them the opportunity to do that here by placing his Sentries of Hithlum out front, where they can be easily sniped out by that massed arrow fire. Without the Bladesman Baird Ithel mixed in with them to sort of block for them and minimize casualties, things are going to get ugly for these poor men of House Hador very, very quickly. And the basically the intent behind Finrod's army here is going to be to kite for as long as possible. So, Scouts of Galeon will be getting pulled back. The front line is going to be very, very fluid. You can already see it starting to happen over here. Although perhaps he left his his Sentries of Galeon within bow shot of the House of Fingolfin counterparts for just a little bit too long, and you can see the damage here. Silmarillion is very lightly armored. They rely on their speed and their skill and their arrow fire in order to be a pain and to win most of their matchups. Irvin and Tower here, a little bit more limited in their ammunition, but they have very high damage projectiles, and you can see, well, it looks like he was going to go after the pikeman there, and I think that that's probably a good idea. One of the biggest issues for facing this particular Silmarillion army is the polearms. They don't have a direct answer to them outside of being able to skirmish them down. So that's probably why he's spending so much time and effort here focusing on the pikemen. And now you can see another pretty old Silmarillion trick here is that he's going to allow the main body of the army to advance forward, but also leave his wings relatively static so that he can be pouring fire into the main host of his enemies from all different sides. The Sentries of Hithlum here, perhaps flying a little bit too close to the sun, moving away from the protection of the Bladesman Baird Ithel. That's a great way for those units to get lost very, very quickly. Silmarillion does well when it comes to lightning strikes. Now, Riders of Dwelin here might just get sussed out by the men of House Hador. Oh, they're so close. I wonder if they're going to see them. And they're still hiding. This is discipline here on the part of Finrod for sure. And they're still hiding. That's a very potent hide that they have there. But again, this is the Green Elves we're talking about here. They're basically the first age equivalent of the Viet Cong. They're going to hide everywhere. You're never going to know what direction they can come from. And that's really their main strength. Kinsmen of Denethor here looking to capitalize on this overextension by the Fyrdsmen of Dorloman. They've actually managed to catch up with these spearmen here, strangely enough. And the Scouts of Galeon don't like being attacked in the rear. And the Green Elf morale is a little bit lower, and the Skirmisher response to shocks is not great. So, yeah, it's a little bit surprising, but also not that surprising at all. And they've actually managed to pin things down here. And they're dealing some damage to the Scouts of Galeon. They got attacked in the rear, and they're just not enjoying themselves. Kinsmen of Denethor are doing what they can to staunch the bleeding of Dwelin being brought forward, but of course this is a spear unit. So unless they can get a nice little rear charge here to break the morale of the Fyrdsmen, it's not going to be a super cost-effective exchange. Marines of Vinyamar pushing forward. I would be interested to see what they go after. The Ents here could be used to shut them down very quickly. But there are, of course, some counters nearby. The two-handed axes. Two-handed units having a bonus against elephants, that could be a problem for the Ents. Look at these Fyrdsmen. These mighty men of Dorloman. Oh, the Scouts of Galeon here just took a javelin volley to the face. They don't like that. Meanwhile, Finrod is being held off on the other side. The two units of Sentries of Galeon not really able to do as much as I'm sure they would like to. And that's largely down to the Marksmen and the presence of the Herdsmen as well. The range capacity of House Fingolfin is quite limited, but it is enough for this early game kind of skirmish to try and keep the Green Elf player on their toes. So it's not all going Finrod's way. So the Lancers of Anon and Galud had a really bad time, probably back here in the woods. Got shot to death, I would assume. Sons of Húrin out here, and they definitely want a piece of the Ents wherever they are. But unfortunately for Finrod, he's just not able to kind of keep up with his micro here. He did much better at kind of drawing me out and like trying to separate the various portions of my army in the game that I played against him in the first round. But this time around, it's not looking great for him. These Kinsmen of Denethor here being swallowed up by some fairly cheap units. And the Ents not really being used to quite as aggressively as I saw him using the last time. But nonetheless, the Green Elves continue to soldier on, trying to kite, trying to do what they can, and currently it's 16-16, so dead even for this decisive finals match. Mythrid and Togolen nearby. They probably don't want to stay too close to some of these missile units. They are very, very low in their numbers, and a volley from the Marines of Inumar could very quickly render them combat ineffective, so he's going to need to be careful with those guys. You can already see that the herdsmen are starting to shoot at him. Not a bad idea. Well, they will maybe take some losses here. And still the center remains intact. Yeah, the House of Ingolfin are pretty dominant in this matchup so far. And this one unit of herdsmen, I would never have thought to send them out on their own like this. I would have expected them to rout fairly quickly. But they've done well. Scouts of Gelion ready to clap back a little bit here, and I think they're going to go right after the Marines of Inumar. Yeah, they are kind of exposing themselves a little bit. This is their unshielded side. So let's see what they end up doing. Oh, they're firing into the rear of the Herdsmen of Dorloman instead. I would probably focus on the Marines of Inumar. They're just an all-around higher quality unit, but maybe he's trying to save his legendary company detachment. What do we got in the back here? Looks like Finrod has been forced to recall his cavalry, and they're now no longer a threat to the rear of the Fingolfin position. Scouts Gelion over here, previously hiding. And now I think they're going to probably shoot into the rear. Maybe of the pikemen, maybe of the bladesmen. But they're just going to do whatever they can to try and thin out the numbers here, especially the infantry, because that is where House Fingolfin is going to be most dominant. So far, they haven't really managed to do that too much. Looks like those scouts finally changed their attention to the Marines of Inumar. Kinsmen of Denethor doing alright here. Holding things up. That's kind of what they're meant to do. The Marines of Inumar have now closed the gap. And if they manage to get a volley off here, these Scouts of Gelion are going to be in some serious trouble. Oh, I think they might actually end up getting caught out. Yeah, sometimes this happens with the loose formation. They can be a little bit unresponsive. You got to issue your orders a few times. Just rapid clicking usually works. But the Scouts of Gelion are actually going to get caught here in close quarters. It's bad news bears for them. There's nothing nearby that can help them. I'm not seeing any cavalry. Well, the Outriders of Dweilwyn are now being brought to bear. This is an opportunity here. They are very exposed. A rear charge from the Outriders of Dweilwyn would be enough to see them off. Herdsmen of Hithlum are in support. But looks like, yeah, just a bit of a lapse in micro here. This is definitely an opportunity, and I think now Finrod sees this. He's going to bring forward with his, or move forward rather, his Outriders of Dweilwyn. And I think Demetrius Stratus sees the problem here. He's going to get himself pinned between the Ents and the Outriders. And so far, his brazen and very aggressive tactics have worked out pretty well for him. But this might have been an overreach. Now this Vinumar Marine's going to get charged down here, and I think we're going to see them die fairly quickly. Outriders of Dweilwyn might take some attrition in return. Bladesmen being brought forward to try and maybe save them. Oh, I'd be shocked if they come out of this. Marines of Vinumar over here as well, but oh, this is nasty. And a really good deployment on Demetrius Stratus' part. Sons of Húrin backing up these Bladesmen. There's nothing here that Assyrian has that's a direct answer to that. So he will actually be able to save his Marines of Vinumar, who still have some ammunition. Meanwhile, the rest of the Green Elf forces, looks like the Urfinen Tower are out of ammunition, and it's still fairly even. The Green Elves are ahead just slightly. Nice charge here into the Herdsmen of Hithlum. I think we're going to see some light infantry losses among the ranks of House Fingolfin. Mythrid and Togolen have been brought forward. They're smashing their way through the Herdsmen. Marines of Inumar do not have the support necessary in order to win this fight. And we could see the end of the valiant men of House Hador very, very quickly here. a violent end for those herdsmen. Now, Fingolfin is kind of capitalizing on it a little bit. These green elf forces have been brought to bear, or brought to heel, and they're a little bit blobbed up right now, so he will be able to fire some shots into them, whittle the numbers of the Mythrin and Tolgalen in particular down, which could end up working out nicely for him, but the loss of those Edain really does suck for him. The Randirim and Tolgalen have now been activated. There's some pikemen here, and they're going to feel the tender mercies, I think, of the Randirim and Tolgalen, and they will finish them off very, very quickly. Opportunity here for some body-piercing goodness, potentially, with some enfilading fire into the Bladesman. And now the House of Fingolfin is switching tack here. They're going to bring a lot of their troops to bear and try and establish local superiority in this area, crush the Green Elf pockets, and continue from there, to try and defeat them in detail if at all possible, which is certainly one of the dangers when playing such an asymmetric faction. Like Assyrian, you need to be able to have your pockets supporting each other at all times, because individually, they are not very strong. Bladesman there, getting stuck in with the Kinsman of Denethor. I think Assyrian has kind of been cleaned out over on this side as well. At the very least, their forces have been driven to the edge of the map, and they're now out of position and unable to continue to support their troops on their left and their center. Sentries of Gelion probably still have some ammunition. There is the possibility for an Assyrian firing line here. Oh, the poor Mythern. Getting picked apart here. I think we could start to see them rout. That would be bad news bears indeed. A powerful rear charge here from the Urfinen Tower. It's going to hurt. I think we're going to start to see these Bladesmen begin to drop very, very quickly. No, surprisingly enough, they managed to weather that storm. That's the high melee defensive House of Fingolfin units at work. Urfinen Tower, still in good numbers. There's some nearby support from the the Scouts of Gelion. Ents now being brought forward. This isn't a bad place to throw those Ents. In with these Bladesmen here. Urfinen Tower holding things down with the Kinsman of Denethor on the other end, but I think that this is going to go the way of House Fingolfin. Very, very strong in this tournament. Demetrius Stratus obviously very experienced with them, and I think he trained for quite a lot using exclusively this faction. Sentries of Hithlum basically destroyed there. Urfinen Tower smacking their way through the Bladesmen. They're actually starting to pull it back there. More and more reinforcements from House Fingolfin pouring into the breach. The Green Elves are still trying their hand at thinning the herd, and they are managing to delay some reinforcements a little bit with their cavalry here. They've got a lot of archers over here that would be extremely valuable for these blobbed up engagements. Unfortunately, they're just out of position. That's something that I think Demetrius Stratus has done really well in this game, is isolate the pockets of Assyrian resistance. Sons of Húrin charging at the Ents. The Ents will definitely manage to skirt away. Randirim and Tolgalen, let's see what they're going after. Ooh, very, very nice indeed. And this is a pretty common tactic, I think, with Assyrian. You want to let your enemy bunch up, then you want to punish them with tools like the Randirim and Tolgalen, and they are able to do that so well right now. Now, Demetrius Stratus not going to let all go the way of the Randirim. Bladesmen charging uphill. They're at the very least going to push these guys out of position, if not outright catching them in close quarters. Finrod doesn't look like he's going to let that happen, however. He's going to begin to pull back here. And if he had maybe, I don't know, another minute and a half, I think he could have turned this whole fight around with those Rangers. And that's why the Urfinen Tower actually locked morale. It's to enable exactly these kinds of tactics. The Ents are also here as well. I think that they could be thrown in to this fight. Oh no. Bad news bears for Finrod. The Randirim getting caught in close quarters. This is something that I was just unfortunately unable to do in my fight versus the Green Elves as Doriath. I wasn't able to kind of separate them, and I wasn't able to put the pressure on these important Green Elf units that Demetrius Stratus is managing to so successfully do in this matchup. Let's take a look at the percentages there. Yep. Still, the Green Elves are ahead, but not by a huge amount. So the remaining herdsmen here, I think, managed to sink their teeth into some of the cavalry. Riders of Dwylwyn looking like they're in poor shape. Randirim retreat being covered by the Sentries of Gelion. But they're also being pushed out of this fight while the Urfinen Tower do their best. But that window of opportunity for Assyrian is rapidly closing. Ents in the back, kicking the marksman to death. Wisely avoiding the Sons of Húrin. I believe are nearby. Yes, indeed. And Finrod has managed to keep their numbers up. They are still at full strength. Certainly not at full health, but full strength for certain. Now he's going to start to try and smash some of the blobs on his own. And it's going to make a difference. I think the... Yeah, we're going to start to see some routing here. And the Green Elves are starting to clean things up. You can see this really powerful strategy from Finrod at work. He used the exact same thing against me, and it worked wonders. I was able to kill off most of his army, but it was the really important stuff, the Ents and the Randirim, that I was not able to deal with in time. And there goes somebody's general. I think that would be the Fingolfin general, actually getting cut down by the Green Elves. No, actually that would be the Green Elf general. Sorry, I got my sides here kind of switched up. Yeah, so the Green Elves are actually beginning to lose out in percentages here. I thought that the green player was the House of Fingolfin for some reason. Blah. That's what happens when you do too many replays. Your sense of what is real begins to break down. It's got Skellion charging in to try and lend some support, but this is looking like a solid victory here for House Fingolfin, although it is still close. Only a 3% difference so far. Still some scouts of Gellion over here. They've actually used their entire ammunition pool. Except for these guys. These guys still have a card to play. The scouts of Gellion could potentially engage some of these units and do decently. Marines of Vinyamor in particular, they can certainly overwhelm with numbers. But this is where the real game is right now. Sentries of Gellion have been destroyed. Outriders of Dweilwen just not able to be where they need to be. And where are those Rangers, I wonder? Randirim have managed to circle back around. Get themselves into a good position, hiding out there in the woods. But House of Fingolfin player has enough infantry reserves left. He's zoned out the Green Elves long enough that this is not a desperate situation. He can mobilize reserves in order to keep the Randirim busy and to push them out of position. He doesn't have to catch them. All he has to do is prevent them from firing. And you're starting to see Finrod do the same thing that he did to me here. Trying to use the Ents to cover the retreat of the Randirim. This is a similar situation that I was in. But I think the House of Fingolfin's probably a little bit better off. They've got more units. And the Green Elves have a little bit less. So, Herdsman Hithlum over here as well. And the Randirim ended up getting caught out. Despite Finrod's efforts, Adimo Adantar kind of running a little bit farther than I think they need to. But Sons of Húrin are nearby. And this is basically game over. There's going to be no miracle for Finrod this time. Demetrius Drenis has his card and he's punched his number. And we're going to see the Host of Hithlum begin to filter in. And now it's kind of Finrod who's being zoned out here. He's unable to use his Ents to come to the aid of the Randirim. The Randirim begin to rout. And the Ents are all that's left for the Green Elves. Aside from some small pockets of resistance, 2 sentries of Gellion over there. We're going to try to kick to death the Sons of Húrin here. They're not doing a terrible job of it. The Adimo Adantar getting in there as well. Let's see if the Ents can kick their way out of this one. I'd be surprised if they could. Yeah, there's just too much here. Finrod could just sit in a blob and wait forever, and there'd be nothing that the Green Elves could do about it. Let's see if they can manage to bring these guys down. Don't think those Ents will stay in there for too much longer. Nope, they are beginning to fall. And this is basically the end for Finrod. He's going to do his best, but these Ents just don't have what it takes, unfortunately. Some herdsmen nearby as well with their bonus versus elephants. Finrod's going to try and double back, maybe go after some of these advancing troops here, marksmen, things like that. But without the Randirim, and this is exactly why we're going to be reducing the speed of Ents. They can just sprint away from things. Their animation makes them a little bit fast, so it's just kind of a process of beginning to tweak it and figure things out. Marksman here. They're going to have no problem fighting these scouts. Marines of Vinyamar will hold these guys up. And the Ents are going to have to either leave them to their devices or move over here to try and protect the scouts. Meanwhile, the rest of the host of Hithlum quickly moving in. And it looks like Finrod is going to be doing this for quite a while. So we're going to go ahead and kick it up to 6 times speed. Doing pretty well there. Yeah, those Ents having some more HP shaved off of them. And now the host of Hithlum has managed to consolidate. And this is basically it. The Ents are donezo. These guys are actually going to get a charge off here. I'm not too sure why Finrod is continuing to do this. He doesn't have anything but the Ents, and he's not going to be able to win this with just Ents. Oh man, this goes on. This just goes on and on. Another Ent going down. Yeah, really exploiting that very, very quick Ent speed for all it's worth. But I think at this point he needs to just admit defeat, because these Ents aren't going to win this. There's Sons of Húrin left. There's Adimo Adantar. His Ents are slowly falling. There's only one still remaining. And we're going to get the admit defeat there. So congratulations to Demetrius Stratus. Well played to Finrod. It was a valiant effort at the end there, even if it was a little bit futile with the constant. There was like 4,000 frames of kiting with one unit. It's a little bit strange. But yeah, really good game between the two of them. Came down kind of to the wire. This obviously doesn't give us the right percentage. This includes casualties healed. You can see those right here. There's quite a lot of them. Oh, those would be for the House of Engolfin. But yeah, so a really good game. Very close down to the end there. Congratulations to Demetrius Stratus for becoming the tournament champion of this week's Flash tournament. And congratulations to Finrod for getting this far and for putting up a valiant last stand. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I hope you've enjoyed this series. I hope you've enjoyed the coverage of our new patch, and as we move closer and closer to the end of August, which is hopefully when we can have this out to you. It might be in the early week of September. We do kind of want to make sure that things are obviously nice and smooth, and Ent speed, for example, is one of those things that we have to work on, one of the minor tweaks, and other stuff as well. But let's go ahead, take a look at chat here. I can answer any questions before I move on for the day. The Ent seems very hard to bring down and very super fast. Yes, we are working on their speed. I've reduced it by a significant amount for the next patch. But yeah, it was definitely one of the more stark, I guess, imbalances in the tournament, was like how fast the Ents are. So that is something that we're working on. But yeah, if anyone else has any questions, I'll leave chat open here for another couple minutes, and I will do my best to answer them before I head out. Let's see if I missed anything as well. I'll go up here. I do like the idea of a Nazgul riding on the back of a Balrog. That, yeah, it's an interesting image, but not really appropriate for the first stage. Nazgul are a little bit ahistorical. Anachronistic, that's the one I'm looking for. Well, it's looking like that's pretty well it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the tournament coverage so far. And I hope you join me for whatever comes next. And that is actually going to be a Reforged replay, believe it or not. I have a couple of them that I've been sent in, and I've just given up on trying to get the motivation necessary to do the big cinematic that I had planned for it. I just don't have the time, unfortunately, with so many things coming up for the end of August and the beginning of the school year. So we'll be bringing you a couple of Reforged replays. One of them, actually both of them, are a scenario battle. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show you the dwarves anytime soon because we only have very limited work done on them. So there's nothing really to showcase outside of a few unit models, and I'm still waiting on the OK to put those into previews and onto our mod DB from the creator of them. So I try to respect people's preferences and post things when they're ready. So, yeah, I don't have anything to show off for the dwarves soon, but we will have something for the House of Gondolin. In fact, if you guys are curious about the Gondolin faction, we just posted a minor update for the House of the Hammer of Wrath, created by Skyly. And it's going to be on our MonTB, it's on our Instagram, and it's also in our preview channel in our Discord. So if you guys are interested in getting into the community, I recommend that you check out the description of my videos. In all my Silmarillion related videos, you're going to find everything you need there about our social media, about getting onto our Discord, etc., etc. And yeah, that's kind of your one-stop shop for all things Silmarillion. Other than that, once the new patch goes public, we will be hosting a public RP. It's kind of like Risk, I guess, in a lot of ways, where you'll be playing out your Risk battles like the moves you make on the game board in the Silmarillion mod. So that's pretty cool. We're still looking for some new generals for, I think, most of the factions, with the exception of the House of Feanor, who I believe are full. So, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everyone.